Dynasty Daddy YouTube channel. Today we're going to dive into some top buys I have on my list going into the pre-draft hype. There's a lot of players that can fly under the radar right now, or people just aren't excited about them. So it's a great time to get out there and try to take advantage of the off-season hype trains and lack of hype trains for some of these players. If you haven't subscribed yet, please, we're trying to hit 1,000. That would help the channel out a lot. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff. As well as support Dynasty Daddy, dynasty-daddy.com. A lot of cool tools there, and we'll be using those for the video today. Anyway, let's jump on in. The first must-buy player is rookie Xavier Worthy, the only player that showed up for the Chiefs last weekend. He's been kind of a controversial player all year. Started off relatively slow after having that two catches, 2 touchdown game. Last season, he had 54 receptions, 638 receiving yards, and 10 points per game. He did turn it on later in the year, scoring much better. Some advanced stats: he had a 16.8 target share with 7.3 opportunities per game and 1.48 points per opportunity. If you look at kind of his breakdown into targets he's getting, it's a lot of stuff down the field, big plays. He doesn't get the volume that we always see from a true wide receiver one, but he does have that upside and developed throughout the year. We saw even in the Super Bowl, he was making big plays. He doesn't need to get the ball a ton, but all you need is one of those big plays to really work out. He currently sits wide receiver 21 on Keep Trade Cut, which I think is relatively fair. I do expect his hype to build after that Super Bowl performance. So if you want to buy, you need to buy as soon as you can. The biggest question I get is, but Rashee Rice is going to come back. Rashee Rice is going to take over Xavier Worthy's usage towards the end of the year. Who's the alpha in that backfield? While it is true that Rice does soak up a lot of the targets in that offense, something to consider is Rashee Rice's usage comes in the middle of the field a lot, whereas Worthy is more of an outside threat, outside the numbers, down the field. Rice honestly kind of takes over the Kelsey role more, especially with Kelsey aging out. We saw Kelsey in the Super Bowl really, did he show up? We saw Taylor Swift more than him. So the reality is I expect Rice to kind of replace Kelsey in that offense, and Worthy will be that number 2, that field stretcher. If the Chiefs address their offensive line as well, we could see Mahomes having more time to sit in the pocket, push the ball downfield to Worthy. So I expect him to continue to take the step forward. Let's not let one bad game from Mahomes spoil us. We know Mahomes and Reed are one of the top offenses in the league. We have an amazing quarterback, and we have someone that can get the ball to Worthy. High passing offense. This is what you want to invest in, especially with a young player like Worthy. Some examples is we see, Smith, A.J. Brown, Chase Higgins. We see 2 wide receivers being fed by high-level quarterbacks, and they kind of have different roles, right? So that's something to consider. I'm not too concerned with Rice coming back next year. We're not even talking about the suspension. Worthy is at least a solid wide receiver 2 option that you could probably get and have that long-term value. So let's look at some trades. I pulled some from the Dynasty Daddy trade database. T. Higgins for Xavier Worthy in the 111. This is just a great value right here. 12 teams start 11, Superflex, deep league. A lot of running backs in this class. You can say, hey, T. Higgins, I'm going to tear off to Xavier Worthy, get the 101. We don't know what's going to happen with T. Higgins. And Xavier Worthy has been healthier than T. Higgins, is younger, and we pick up an extra pick that we can use to plug into whatever we want. And that's going to probably be a Luther Burden or something like that. I did a mock draft video 2 weeks ago, so I'll put it right here if you're interested in that. But great deal, great process move. Another example is a tier up to Xavier Worthy. This is a Wayndale Robinson in the 110 for Xavier Worthy. If you can take the 110, turn it into probably would be the wide receiver 1 in this draft class. I'm doing that any day of the week. Xavier Worthy tied to a great offense. Way better than Wayndale Robinson long term. Here's the last one I thought was interesting. JSN and 2 seconds for Xavier Worthy in the 108. While the value here isn't as amazing, I still like the idea of taking JSN, breaking him apart. What's the difference between JSN and Xavier Worthy? Not a ton, and you get an extra first. You kind of roll those 2 seconds into a first. So I enjoy making trades like that. Next up, we have the most exciting quarterback in the NFL, a superstar, one that everyone wants. QB 20 on Keep Trade Cut, Jared Goff. He's basically just the perfect evolution of Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott, where Jared Goff is literally a top 10 quarterback for, I think, the past 3 years. Still, no one really wants him. Hey, I made the mistake myself in some of my leagues. I was like, I'd rather have Kyler Murray than Jared Goff. And the reality is the value is probably on Jared Goff's side, considering his track record, his offense, his situation. It's hard to bet against Jared Goff at his price point. And in the offseason, this is the best time to buy a quarterback like Jared Goff, buy a quarterback like Dak Prescott. Jared Goff last year had 22.9 points per game. He also had 6 high-end spike weeks, which is incredible. I mean, that means he scored top 6 in quarterback scoring, single-handedly winning you some of those weeks. So to me, Jared Goff is a pretty much constant buy. I don't think he'll ever be really overpriced at this point because you can't do much better than Jared Goff has done for the past 3 years. One concern is that we are losing Ben Johnson, so it'll be interesting to see how that offense looks now that they lose their offensive guru that didn't make the best play calling in the NFC Championship, or not NFC Championship, but the divisional round. But I'm interested to see how Jared Goff evolves with his next coordinator. That's probably the biggest question mark, but even for the price of admission, it's pretty easy to at least kick the cans and find someone that has the value of Jared Goff. Let's look at a few quick trades here. 4 days ago, Superflex League, Jared Goff for the 206. Smash, easy. Like you lock up a quarterback. Jared Goff is going to be better than probably any quarterback in this draft, and all it takes is 1 second. I don't know. That's a fleece in my books, so I don't know if you'll get a deal like that, but still, they're out there. Here's one that I think is a little bit more realistic. Trevor Lawrence, tear down from Trevor Lawrence, pick up a Jared Goff in a second. Easy. Jared Goff is probably going to outproduce Trevor Lawrence like he's had for the past 3 years, and you pick up a second. Flexibility, you like that, especially in a deeper league, right? 12 teams start 12. Perfect trade here. Here's the last one. This one's kind of crazy, but they give up Drake May, the 103, and a third-round pick for Goff, Barkley, in the 112. This trade, I think it really depends on the direction of your team. If you're a rebuilding team, picking up the 103, Drake May, incredible package for these older players. But if you're a win-now team, you move back a little bit in a draft that doesn't have the high-end talent but has the depth. You're still probably going to end up with a solid young running back or wide receiver. And then you get Barkley and Goff, who are old but always produce. So I think this is more of a situational trade, but still, Goff is a great player to kind of be a throw-in. He's a throw-in here for the Saquon Barkley deal. So something to consider. Next up is the poor man's Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, currently wide receiver 23 on Keep Trade Cut. There's a lot that works against him and a lot that I kind of like about him currently. Currently, he is sitting at wide receiver 23 on Keep Trade Cut. He scored 9 points per game last season. He had 5.6 opportunities a game and 1.66 points per opportunity with a 17.8% target share. The biggest thing for me is this situation is getting shaken up, right? New coaching staff don't even know what their quarterback situation is going to look like. Are they going to draft one? Are they going to, roll it out with Derek Carr one more year? Olave, is he going to play? Injury concerns, what's going on? To me, I think Olave still is a solid wide receiver 2. If you're paying wide receiver 1 prices for him, get out of here. But he has that wide receiver 2 upside, and those injury concerns, while they are scary, can depress his value to where you can maybe get him for a decent deal. Some people are probably just out on him, kind of like Tua, where people just don't want to deal with it. So it's something to consider, something to at least kick the stones on, and see if there's some opportunity for you to get a decent deal here and plug in someone that has that wide receiver 2 upside and it's not super old. To look at a few trades here, two seconds and a third for Chris Olave. Am I going to miss those seconds and thirds? Probably not. It's worth the price of admission in my book. Seconds are easy to get and sell. This deal's amazing, right? 205, Ilyasova, who's, just a guy. Pick up a Olave, especially in a 10-team start 9, much more shallow league. You are, once again, consolidating, getting the better player in the deal, so you're probably going to win that one. And then lastly, I think this is kind of a fun deal. I actually take the Amon-Ra side here, but Amon-Ra for Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. In an 8-team start 10, very shallow. Consolidation always wins. So I want to go with Amon-Ra here. But if this was a deeper league, 12 teams start 11 or something like that, locking up 2 potential starters that are young and have at least a decent, track to run on, I guess, for lack of a better term, that to me is a pretty decent value for Amon-Ra, who kind of is a little underrated in my opinion at this point. Last buy of this video is Jonnu Smith, tight end for the Miami Dolphins. Currently, he sits at tight end 15 on Keep Trade Cut. And last year, especially towards the end, during the playoffs, he went on a tear. He averaged 14 points per game, 99 targets, 79 catches, 828 yards, 6.3 opportunities a game, 2.5 points per opportunity with an 18% target share with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on his team. He had more targets per route run than both Waddle and Hill. People kind of just wrote him off as like, oh, well, the Dolphins are falling apart. They have to just force feed him or something. I do think he has some legs to stand on. He has a 2-year contract with 1 year left. That situation is not changing that much. Coaching staff seems to be intact. We're going to run it back 1 more year at least. And something I do think that did benefit him was that Miami Dolphins offensive line last year took a huge step back. They lost Hunt and others in free agency, and they had the 26th offensive line last year, so Tua had to get the ball out quick, and that's where Jonnu really just ate. He ate all underneath. They weren't able to get the ball downfield and get those big Tyreek Hill plays as much, so they had to really rely on A-Chain and Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith is an incredible athlete, and again, for the price of admissions, I mean, it's cheap. It's cheap. It's a bargain bin guy that could easily be another top 10 tight end, and so he's probably my favorite tight end at his current price. Just super cheap, but also has high upside that we saw towards the last 8 or so weeks last year. Here's some trades that have happened in the past week. Theo Johnson for Jonnu. Again, any swap like that, give me a young tight end that hasn't proven it. Ship him away. I don't need anything long term. Here's another one. Tank Bigsby. He's getting way too much hype right now. If I can take Tank Bigsby, tear down to a Jonnu Smith, pick up a second and a third, easy. Last one. Xavier Leggett, young wide receiver. This is a 1 tight end premium as well. Easy trade to get Jonnu. There's a lot of players out there that you could probably trade for a Jonnu right now. Just talk about the age, talk about how he's a fraud or whatever. But Jonnu did produce really well and is going to be pretty much in the exact same situation. I expect Miami to invest more on their offensive line and on their defense. I know they have a lot of stars that are up for contracts, so they're probably going to have to let some walk. Perfect situation. I doubt they're going to try to change up that offense too much because they have to address their trenches. That wraps it up. Again, thank you so much for the patience. I know I missed last week. And if you made it this far, consider supporting the channel. We got small YouTubers out here trying to get into your subscription feed. So help us out. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. If you have any ideas or questions that you'd like me to address in future videos, leave a comment below. I usually will respond to every comment below. So definitely I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of my buys or some of, am I wrong or whatever. Also, check out dynasty-daddy.com. Completely free and an amazing site that I've spent 3 years building. So it's something that I'm really passionate about. And it's a big reason why I'm even sitting in front of camera right now. So I appreciate it, and I'll see y'all in the next video.